welcome to today's talk, Monday the 23rd of January. Now I'm kind of curious really, just how long can the UK government and other governments and mainstream media keep on ignoring the huge amount of excess deaths that is around? It's just quite incredible. To say an elephant is in the room, it would represent significant understatement. And this is all around the world, or at least all around the sophisticated Western countries. This is happening everywhere. And I'm going to be looking at data today from Europe. This is from Euro Mono Bulletin. And as we'll see, this is official European data. I'm going to show you this site in a minute. This week, pooled Euro Mono all-cause mortality. Elevated levels of excess mortality. Overall, all around the place geographically and in all age groups. And we'll be looking at age groups such as 0 to 14. Now, the Chief Medical Officer in the UK has said that the excess deaths are caused by people not being able to get their statins during the pandemic. Well, most 14-year-olds don't take statins, so I think we need to do a bit better than that, to be quite honest. And why mainstream media is not absolutely doing in the UK would say doing a Jeremy Paxman on him. Why aren't the media getting at him and asking him these questions? Where is the investigative journalism here? You know, is it just left to a few eccentrics on YouTube? It's really quite bemusing. Anyway, data from 25 European countries, substantial regions. Average levels from pre-2020. Now, the thing about the data I'm about to show you is they take their averages from pre-2020, so we're not dealing with the increased levels in the pandemic. And here's the first graphic. This is in all ages. Now, these peaks in death here, of course, we expect this because these were during the pandemic months. But then we see that there's another one here and another one very high at the moment. This we wouldn't expect. So here's a bit of a blow up of that. So this is this is the middle of 2022, week 26. What we've got here is this is what we would expect, the line here. This is the range we would expect. The red line indicates a statistically significant increase, and anything blue is above that. So we can see that the excess deaths have been consistently high throughout 2022. And yet we don't have an official explanation for this, other than people not being able to get their statins from the Chief Medical Officer. I really think maybe it's time for Chris Whitty to think about going back to some other sort of employment, because I don't see that the job is being done at the moment, to be quite honest. So let's look at another age group here, 0 to 14-year-olds. Now, I'll show you this on the cumulative data here, but it is increased for 0 to 14-year-olds as well. And again, if we see the baseline there, it actually is above. This will be clear when I show you a cumulative graph. But if we look now, we see a significant increase in this age group. These are young people who it's not lack of treating ongoing diseases which is causing this. I'm not saying that's not part of it in other age groups, but in this age group I don't think it is. 15 to 44-year-old age group, again seeing the baseline here and consistently above the baseline, and sometimes above the significant level as well. 45 to 64-year-olds, again, the high levels in the pandemic waves we would expect, 2020, 2021. This was the alpha wave, for example. Remember it well. This would be the delta wave here. But now it's still above what we would expect, and substantially so. 10,404 in this age group, excess deaths. Dotted line there. So we see that all of 2022 have been, well, we've only dipped below what we would expect there on very rare occasions. This is a significant issue. 65 to 74s, again, fairly similar pattern. And again, we see all of 2022, or at least all the second half of 2022, this really quite a substantial increase. 75 to 84-year-olds. It's kind of everywhere. And again, this is the older age group there, before we go back to the all-age ones that we started with. Now, I am going to show you some more data from from Europe in a minute. I'll just show you where this is from, actually, briefly, because we have to be careful with our sources. This is from here. Euromono is a European mortality monitoring activity. Official national mortality statistics are provided from 29 European countries or substantial regions. So it's supported by the European Centre for Disease Prevention and Control, World Health Organization, and the State Serum Institute of Denmark. And you can see these for yourself. Just click on it, and you get all this. You get all this information here. These are the graphs we've just looked at. I'll just show you some at the bottom here. These are. I've got this set to cumulative here. So again, all ages. Now, what we're looking at here is this is the baseline that we expect pre 2020. Now, this dark line here is 2021. Okay, there were still some pandemic deaths going on there, but 2022, in the times of Omicron, we know that deaths are massively reduced, so we cannot attribute these deaths to COVID. These deaths are caused, or the majority of these deaths are caused by something other than COVID. So that's that age group, that's all ages. Then the 0 to 14s. Now, what we actually see here, in 2021, when the pandemic was still raging, we actually see that less 0 to 14-year-olds were dying. So in 2021, at least for the first half of 2021, deaths in 0 to 14-year-olds were lower than expected. Great news. But then we actually see that it starts going up here. So this means there was more deaths per week here than we would expect, until at the end of 2021 we've got excess deaths then week 52, 446. But all of 22 it's been higher, and it's just cumulated. So we've got what can we see there? We've got 1,371 excess deaths in 0 to 14-year-olds. These are huge amounts of deaths. So why have deaths in 0 to 14-year-olds in these European countries been higher than we would expect for all of 2022? And why isn't this all over everywhere? And why aren't... You sense my frustration. 15 to 44, again higher than baseline. 2021, 2022. Again, 45 to 64s, again accumulating as we go through the year. 2021, okay, that was a pandemic year, but 2022 there were still 30,000 excess deaths when we can't attribute these to COVID. The older age group, 65 to 74, again much the same. 2021, we would expect some more deaths there from the pandemic. 2022, we wouldn't be expecting the excess deaths, but we still see them. Same in 75 to 84s. Taking all of 65 pluses, we see more excess deaths in 2022 than in 2021. This is not the way round we would expect it. These are not COVID deaths. And we would expect the excess deaths in 2022 to be even lower, because a lot of the more vulnerable people had died in 2020 and 2021. Over 85s showing much the same, much the same trend. So do check that out for yourself. Fascinating site. You can fiddle with it and get all sorts of interesting tidbits of data from it. So it's all over. Significant increase in excess deaths throughout 2022, and the first weeks of 2023. Also, of course, as we've just said, from the European data, it's all over and in all age groups. Now, something interesting from the UK. We did look at this. This was the Institute and Faculty of Actuaries from Life Insurance. We looked at this a couple of days ago. Mortality rate in 2022 compared to 2019. We did notice, for example, the excess deaths in the 20s to 44-year-olds was 7.8% higher than we would expect in 2022. This is, again, consistent with the European position and is being ignored by our governments and mainstream media. I'm not going to get annoyed because it's just too absurd. It's just too absurd. I'm just going to try and give you as cognitively as I can. Although I am, my feelings about this are pretty strong, as you can probably tell. It's maybe sleeping through a bit. In the UK, in the second half of 2022, 26,000 excess deaths compared to 4,700 in the first half of 2022. So as 2022 went on, let's be clear about this. 2022 went on, the excess deaths increased. And the number of deaths registered in England and Wales in week 1 of 2023 compared to 2019, 30% higher than we would expect. Now, I hope some of you managed to catch the excellent interview we did with Professor Norman Fenton yesterday on the deficits in the Office for National Statistics data. And bear in mind that the excess deaths got higher as we went through 2022. So the Office for National Statistics data set deaths by vaccination status in England. Now, these are downloadable as the data in spreadsheets. They don't mean too much to me, but Professor Fenton and others can take them and analyse them and work out thousands of things from them. That's what statisticians do, thankfully. So is this bang up to date now as we would expect? Well, the last time this was updated was the 31st of May. So with no comparative data between the vaccinated and the unvaccinated in England after the 31st of May 2022. And yet we know that the mortality was significantly higher in the second half of 2022 compared to the first half of 2022. So I would have thought that this is a bit of an emergency ONS, really, because we need to look at all variables. We're not saying there's a connection, of course. We would like the data to speak for itself. But there we see the excess deaths throughout the European countries. Again, compared to the baseline here, as we stress, higher in all age groups and in all regions. And in fact, if you go onto this site, it really is quite good. You can see, you can play with it for hours. Germany, high excess. England, moderate excess. Scotland, high excess. The countries for which the data is available: Greece, low excess. Spain, lower excess. Portugal, moderate excess. I'm not overly convinced by that French data, but never mind. We see the data there readily available, but we did look at the pooled data. So check that out for yourself. Make sure I'm not making it up. Excess deaths throughout 2022, way above baseline, not what we would expect, not explicable by COVID, met by deafening silence from governments and mainstream media. I'm just going to leave it at that. I think I've said enough. It's just utterly bizarre and inexplicable. But thank you for watching.